This podcast is brought to you by Hoare Chartered Accountants. Hoare Chartered Accountants are based in Galway City and are a leading provider of audit, accountancy and taxation services. For more information, visit hoarecharteredaccountants.ie. You're welcome along to the Maroon and White pod. So, disappointment for the Galway senior hurlers at the weekend. That was definitely not in the plans. They were defeated by Kilkenny 324 to 21 points. I'm joined by former Galway minor and under-20 hurling manager Brian Hanley to look back on Galway's start to the Leinster Championship. Brian, no point in saying otherwise. That was not good on Saturday.
No, it didn't work out at all for them. Very, very disappointing. I suppose the endeavours of the last 10 or 15 minutes really is what you always think about when you leave a game. It's nearly the reflection of the last, the general public always reflecting how you play the last 15, 20 minutes. That's most relevant in their mind. But the fight wasn't there and very disappointing. But they still have a lot to work on. It is a huge work in progress. And 3 or 4 years ago, I was saying to the county board and I met them, it was a 5-year plan. Most definitely after the 3 years we've had, it's definitely a 5-year plan now. And I know Mihal's there before and he's going to need every bit of it to get us competing at the top table again.
Why do you think we were so far off it? Like,
I
I went
don't
down and
know. It's hard to know. Like we're bringing in the odd player. Are we as a county very quick to get rid of players in the past if they didn't perform straight away? Are we bringing them in too young? Like I know that Tiernan and Gavin missed out on the under-20 championship, but us, they didn't get that blood and to stand on the sideline and not play minutes hurling a couple of years ago when that would have stood to them. Um, are these all factors? I don't, you see in Kilkenny lads, they all played the relevant age of the time and they came into the team and they're there now. But I don't know. There's no doubt in my head the quality of the players that we worked with for the 6 or 8, 10 years. But it's a different animal to make an inter-county senior hurler and we don't have enough of the Conor Whelans and his prime, the Dahi Burks in their prime. You know, you've got the likes of Fintan Burke who's coming after a savage 6 or 7 years with Club and County. Conor Cooney the same way. You're going all year round, it's very, very hard. And, they're competing at the top end of the hurling all year round. But I don't know is the answer. I don't know why we're just not. Like Decky McLaughlin was so proud to see him there. He was on our 32 for the minors. He didn't feature in 2019 and then in the last year, or the first year of the 20s, he was excellent for swing forward and now he's getting his chance. But then he only got 2 or 3 balls. He got 2 points the last game. He was whipped off. It was the system let him down more so than his play, I think. So it's just hard to know.
It really is because I made a trip down to Nolan Park at the weekend and was hopeful that it was going to be a good start for Galway, but it really wasn't. First 20 minutes or so, we actually hurled well in patches, but then after that, it was just cruise control really for Kilkenny. In your eyes, are the hurlers here at the minute?
I've no doubt they are. And you can't choose one bad game or one bad league game, or they start off bad in the league and then turn around to have a good league campaign using an awful lot of players. I think Limerick were the only county team that used more players than Galway in the league this year. You just, if you want to be ultra positive about the way things could have been, if we got that goal that Kilkenny got and gave us the start and give us the momentum, could we have carried it on and had a different result? Albeit you might win it, but you could have had a better performance. You have to look at that sort of stuff. You have to look at the restructuring of the team. You'd have to question moving Tom Monaghan out of midfield where I think he's been absolutely brilliant for his midfield for the last number of years. I think we lost that impetus he has around there, and I'm sure we'll look at that and they may revert back to putting him back there again. But they'd have learned an awful lot in defeat. You learn more than in victory, so they've learned an awful lot. Because let's face it, as we said prior to this, it's a game defining moment next weekend against Offaly. Like you lose that, you're back to another year of waiting to develop again.
I think we've went away from our DNA in circumstances because at the weekend it was easy for Kilkenny to get scores, and even in the first half they missed a fair bit. We seem to be an easy team to score against. You look, it's our third 12-point defeat as well in a row. Defensively, there seems to be something missing because we really did seem to lack the intensity, and we probably lacked intensity as well against Limerick, against Cork, and against Tipperary. Just defensively, there does seem to be some sort of issue there at the minute.
Well, I think that comes from not having your coherent six or eight. All the teams you mentioned there, with the exception of Tipperary, the first round of the league, they all have a mainstay of a team that they have had for and been building for a number of years. I think Galway are in transition with Garage gone out of the backs. Joseph Cooney isn't there anymore. They would have been two that have been 6 and 7, or that have been in around that middle third that you're talking about. Dahi wasn't there the last day. And like there's no doubt that he's probably one of the best defenders in Ireland on his day, and if not the best defender in Ireland. You're looking at Fenton, is he a better wing back? You could, can we free him up? The Manions, like they still competed very well the last day. Can you put Pádraig back three? Yeah, I think that just we're at a stage now where you are maybe struggling for stability more so than anything else, and that's been a combination of the last couple of years. If there hasn't been, it hasn't stabilised, and now, to be fair to me, Hanley, they're starting again, and they have to try and start your two cornerbacks look consistent anyway. Grealish and Morrissey, they've had enough game time. They're hold their own every day and can offer more. So you've got to build around that. But I think midfield has been an area where Keenan's in there now, and you'll be hoping that. I think Tom Mann to go back out there would be an advantage. I know Ronan Glennon's come back from injury, but you need stability. You need lads to get to know each other, and I think we're suffering because of that. And likewise, our half forward line hasn't been stable either. Cathal Mannion had an excellent game the last day. He carried the fight very well. Can Conor Cooney come into that? Can we get regular players playing regularly together, which breeds a consistency among their play, and I think that's where we're lacking.
You mentioned about Gavin at six, worked really well throughout the league. The last day it was probably difficult. Maybe Kilkenny learned from Gavin that day, and they weren't going to let him on the ball as much. And Kilkenny dropped very deep, and they left a big gap between their full forward line and the rest. And it was difficult for Gavin at stages whether he decided to sit back or go out. And when Kilkenny were getting a lot of primary possession around that middle third, it made it even more difficult for him. Do you see Gavin as a six, or do you think we'll persist with that, or would you like to see him further forward?
Well, you have to persist with it now because you've gone into your league campaign with it. But like, it's about the lads around Gavin as opposed to Gavin. Like, there's no doubt Gavin. We've seen Gavin. He's probably one of the best wrist players I've ever managed to coach. He's outstanding character. He's got all the attributes to be whatever he wants to be in the game of hurling, and in general life he will be whatever Gavin wants to be because he's that driven and he's that good of a young lad. And I think where Gavin was let down was the people around him. You need, like, Declan Hannon's role is what he's trying to play. Declan Hannon had 5 of the best people around him and 3 of the best inside him to make that system work. And Galway aren't at that yet because we haven't had the consistency of players around him. That's definitely a work in progress. I hope to stick with it for Gavin's sake. I hope Gavin gets back in there at 6 because there's no doubt his ball playing ability. It was a big day for him. He was nervous. You could see the first 1 or 2 balls he came to, he uncharacteristically fumbled him a little bit. And then the goal set them back at the beginning of the game, and it rocked a bit of confidence, that you would have had. But I hope to stick with Gavin. I think I know him. I know him as a person. I know him from working with him. I know, how good he can be and how good he will be. And I don't think that game the last day will define him. But I just hope he gets 6, and I think maybe even Dahi at 3 and Fenton at 5, and that's a bit more leadership around him, and Pádraig can beside him, and you've got probably Darren Morrissey and Grealish, and then that's more of a stabilised 5 around him. And I think maybe Tom Mann going to the middle of the field for that energy and work rate and covering back and working back and guidance. I think there's a lot of experience there, and I think that will help Gavin Owen and bring him on.
Yeah, it does seem important for us to stick with that now because, as you mentioned, he's played all the league there. He played there the last day, and it's not a position where you can just tear up the script either.
Well, it is. It's not fair on anyone if you just give them the game and take them out of it and say that's it. It's not. I doubt they do that, and I would be very surprised any manager do that. This is a long-term vision that you have to have, and like in everything you do, and there's building blocks, and that was a massive building block for Gavin. That's what he'd have learned from that game, is huge, and what he learned hopefully playing at 6 the next day is huge. But I think it's the people around him and it's the consistency that we're lacking of playing together. Like, it's all great using so many and whatever, but if you want to get results straight away, that's not going to happen. But what will happen is you'll begin to start formulating the team and formulating the guys around them, and I think they'll work together and they'll do that. I think getting Dahi work back in there is key. I think getting Fenton out, they're 2 huge leaders. Getting Pádraig the half back line maybe Like that's, and you've got the two lads I mentioned. That's a strong six. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with your keepers. Any of them you play, they're both top quality keepers. Very unlucky the last of Derek was the first goal. That it was just one of those things. But like he's a top class keeper. He's a great striker of the ball. And then if you get your midfield pairing right, I think you have something to build on then again and start again. And I think that's maybe what was lacking the last one.
Biggest disappointment probably is like we all see this as a project, and we know that there is going to be a bit of pain along the way for Galway Ireland. There's no point in saying otherwise. But in a lot of supporters' eyes and the Galway general hurling public, they feel no matter who Galway are playing, they should always be competitive.
Go yeah, well, even the last, if you take it, we got to start the second half. I know it's ifs, buts, ends, and maybes, but they got the goal. Kilkenny got the goal to set them up in the start of the game, and they got the good run to start the second half. And you take them, and they're two massive things, and any team can do that. You look at Clare yesterday, they did Cork. Do you know what I mean? The Cork tear up the script, went down even without a six. It just showed you the whole thing capitulated around that. It was very obvious. Even without the sending off, you could see the 10 minutes before half time, Clare got back in there because their six wasn't functioning. Now Galway have a six that we're trying to build on, we're trying to work on, we're trying to educate. We got it back, and we got to back the people around them, back the process, and back all that. But yeah, we could be more competitive. But the game ran away from us. You know what I mean? You come back now, and you've got huge games ahead of you. Starting next weekend, that's all you can focus on. And it's going to be difficult above in Tullamore. It's their first home game in how many years in the Leinster Championship, and they competed very well against Dublin. I didn't hear much about other than Dublin caught them at the very end, but it's still a big, big game for Galway, and it's you'll be hoping that the togetherness of the group it'll be tested, and if that's good and solid, and if foundations are good and solid, and in their core values and what they're doing as a group, then they'll be fine.
We even heard from Michal after the game for him to reference that that was unacceptable, and in his eyes, it was like that was definitely not in Galway's plans at all. Like people might have said, oh, they could potentially meet down the road in the Leinster final, but at the minute, Galway probably can't really be thinking about a Leinster final, as we mentioned, that we have a must win now coming up next week or this weekend.
Yeah, but they've got to do what they did in the league and put a run together, and they will do. Like I think the quality player is there. You just don't become a bad player overnight or a bad group overnight. Um, it's very easy
Do
to
you write
criticize.
this off as just an off day?
Well, I hope so. If the group is together, and if everything's right within the group, it will just be an off day. You know, what I mean, they'll correct that themselves. They're all top quality hurlers. They are all star performers for their club, for the county at every different age down through the years. You know what I mean? So these guys will know how to bounce back. The management are as good as they'll get. So like I presume that group will have already met at this stage and started out a lot of stuff and be back in the training field, out in the field again tomorrow, addressing what they need to do and set up again for Offaly. It was hard when the game was gone from you. Sometimes you just go flash and away in Kilkenny the last day and the finish. Like let's not forget Galway Rattle got 4 or 5 points. Connor came on, made a bit of a difference. We got four scores unanswered, and if we could have prevented the last two goals going in and on with the ifs again, but they're the little things we need to tidy up. And I think Dahi come back there will prevent a lot of that. Um, and you go again, you take them out of it like they got what 1-2 or 2-3 or 2-4 at the very end of the game, which puts a totally different complexion in the game. And we did give up. The disappointing thing is for me is our system of play and attack and play delivery ball into the inside line wasn't there really consistently all day. And when you Brian and Decky and Connor Whelan in there and what 2 points from an inside line that poses a threat to win any game. That's I know Connor got a point, I think, after coming on, but I think that's not going to be good enough. And it's the delivery ball and the system play, like when you had Young Burns in there from Loughrea, he did very well in the league. He got ball into every lad that was in there in the corner forward position was getting loads of ball except last Saturday evening. So I presume they'll revert back to that, and that's where our danger and our threat will be. And then scores win games and you have a different complexion on their whole team.
The delivery ball is something that's being mentioned a lot. And
Well, it's
when you look at the delivery ball overall, when it comes to this, like this has been an issue now under a lot of management teams. How do we go about fixing this delivery ball? Because like we've seen it under Henry, it's been an issue. Like we've seen Conor Whelan has to work so hard to get the ball, and maybe sometimes he has to come too deep to win the ball. And we'd prefer him. I think there is one stage where he gets his point in the second half, and we see the delivery ball was good there. But how do we go about solving this?
I again, I presume with me, Holland, I mean, knowing well the coaches he has, that they'll be working on that. And a game can often go away from you like that you just don't. And the next day they could pepper the full forward line with ball, and it's just, I think we need to get our middle thirds in. I think we definitely need to get midfield sorted out. That's where your game, between the two 45s, are we winning enough breaking ball there? Are we getting on ball? Are we feeding it back? Are we getting, we seem to be under pressure delivering ball the last day. Like if you look at even the two games yesterday, is very evident of the ball that was sent in. The guy delivering the ball had loads of time. We didn't seem to have that time on Saturday. It wasn't, I don't believe, that Kilkenny work rate was any better than any team yesterday, but we just didn't get seem to have that time on the ball, or maybe that understanding of being together enough at that championship pace for that. But I think that'll come. I think I've no doubt that'll come because you know like Tiernan and Killian worked very very hard in the league. The last day he got a great score to start the game and then drifted out of the game. The game didn't flow for us in that middle third at all. And you need the likes of him on the ball delivering. He can win a lot of ball. He can win a lot of breaking ball. His delivery can be outstanding because he's a great striker of the ball. And you need to get in after it then. And like I think Cathal Mannion was a shining light the last day. Really, his whole body language alone, and you could say you could play with anyone in Ireland, like the way he carried himself in the field, and he carried that fight. And if we can get that sorted out, that we win more ball in the middle third, and we were able to set up. The rucks and tackles are huge. You can turn and turnovers, like we got probably didn't win enough turnovers at all. Like the last year, I don't know what the percentage was, but looking at television, you know that it wasn't good. And if we could start winning them and turning them back to our half back line and for delivery inside, then you have a different complexion in it.
There's a question that came in from a listener. What's the point in playing a two-man for 4-9? We somehow also managed to be outnumbered out the field as well. We've seen Cork have really went with this three-man full forward line. It's old school, it's traditional, but you see the reward when it's 3-on-3 inside. You're not letting the opposition sit a man back in front. Do you think this is something we need to do?
Yeah, but again, it goes back to Cork two. We were probably like Cork 2 to 3 years ago. Cork last year
Yeah.
got beaten in our final, but they had the players that were developing that system to got them there. Like that system fairly well went to the left last night and was down, he went out of six. And it just shows you how one key component. So if you take Dahi Burke or you take Connor Cooney or David Burke to come back into your side, can you imagine David Burke if he's able to contribute for an hour or 70 minutes or 40 minutes? Like he'll win ball, he'll deliver ball. Like there's no one better as proven in years. So we have a lot of good players to come in that didn't play the last day that will help to that and aid to that. I think you know, I'm a big advocate of when a player is going well in the one spot, leave him. I think Tom Mann for me, midfield was a shining light for us the last 2 years, 3 years. And we took him out of there. Can we get him back in there? Can the system develop that? Can he deliver ball in? And again, it's going back to if you play Gavin at six, can you get Pádraig one side? And can you get consistency around him? Can you get Dahi in at three, maybe even Finton at seven? Can you get the consistency around them? Do you know what I mean? That they're used to playing with each other. They know what to do on these occasions. And I suppose ultimately they don't panic on the ball, and that's what you're really looking for. Because if you gauge against everyone else, what the big attribute is patience they have on the ball. Like they never seem to be, they always seem to get the pass off and get it to a striker, and that's hitting under pressure. And we're in the early stages of that. I presume just looking at it from the outside, it seems to be that way. But I'd still think that you're not too far away if you get the caliber of player we need on the field. I think that'll happen.
One big positive, Brian, John Fleming. Really impressed with him at the weekend.
Yeah, he did well. Yeah, he did well. But you got to look at what happened in midfield as well, though. His man had
Yeah.
an awful lot of ball. He'd a power of wides. You know what I mean. I think, he's naturally a wing forward. I think he's naturally a wing forward. We had him in the colleges. We had him. I seen him underage with Jeff. He wasn't in my underage. He was just ahead of me. But I worked with him in college and that, and I didn't see him as a midfielder. I didn't see that, but he did very, very well. It was a huge day from me. He was very good as well. He would have learned an awful lot from it. He'd have taken a lot from it, but you know, he's a finisher. In you go to airport, he's a finisher. Like that's the playing full forward inside line. He is an out finisher, and that's what we need in there. But I think if you were Derek in the goal the last day, where are you putting your puck out? So if you go short ground, if you're going long, who you hitting? And I think that's a major, major concern for me for this group at the moment. Where are we aiming to get a ball past midfield into the inside line? Who's going to win it there? If it's not into grass, who's going to win it in the 50-50 or 60-40? And that's I'm sure a concern for the current management team, is concern for the Galway supporter, I suppose, really in a way, because when you need to win primary possession still. I know it's an old cliche going long and everything, but you still need to win primary possession. You need to have a get out ball that can get you up the field and get you attacking quickly. Do you know what I mean? Albeit even as to catch and feed it back and go again. But that is what we need to work on, and I think 10 and 12 now are becoming crucial positions for Galway.
It is the thing. It wasn't just the midfield, like the half back line. Like we're between nearly our half forward line and midfield. We're just really overpowered in that whole sector at the weekend.
Yeah, you were, and it goes back, to what I started about of the caliber of player we there, and that they're all very good, but the experienced lads that we didn't have there. But all of them would have learned an awful lot from that. They'd have taken an awful lot from that. Like that was a big game for Kilkenny now. Kilkenny were like they were on the verge of relegation at one stage in the league. It wasn't going well for Derry Ling. Now, to be fair to them, Blanchfield got injured, Murphy got injured, and Mullen got injured, and they were able now, albeit Blanchfield at the end, but the other two were in the first half, and they still came over that. And I think Blanchfield coming on was actually a help to them. But Mullen's an awful loss to them, and I know TJ used to come into in that, but they still had good experience. The lads were blooded and had played a lot of games. But yeah, that we need to see that fight next weekend. We need to see us winning more dirty ball, as they say, or more ruck ball, and we need to see us turning over the ball a lot more. And I think when that comes, everything else comes with it. If you have energy and work rate and that, everything else comes with that, like.
You mentioned Cahill earlier on. He was a big shining light at the weekend, even from place ball as well. We haven't seen him take many frees for Galway, but it's probably reassured a lot of supporters his accuracy from the place ball. So there's obviously no issue with Cahill taking the frees as championship goes on. And even I thought Brian Kincannon tried really hard for a limited supply of ball he got. Like I don't have stats at the minute, but on the frees, Brian Kincannon won even just winning ball, and he did win a lot of frees as well at the weekend.
Oh yeah, he will, and he'll always do that. But we need they're them two lads now are long enough there now. They need to be carrying the fight. They need to be doing that every day. They don't have any excuses now for bad performances. They've been at the top level and being our best performers. Franklin Cannon is probably, the one person that can turn it on and win a game on his own of anyone you have, even ahead of Conor Whelan. In my eyes, if Franklin Cannon turns it on, he could do anything. He could score 3 goals as easy as 3 points. He's that good. But when it's not happening from, it's to dig deep and it's to fight it out and get it, be able to win it, to turn it around for you. And that's what we need to see from him. That's what we have to expect from Colin. No, he's long enough there. He's got to start delivering. Like former players have done, they've stood up and delivered, and that's it's their turn now. They're the main men in this group now, and they've got to be doing that. If they're not doing that, even when Connor came on, to be fair to him, first thing he did was put Butler down a little bit and shook them up a little bit. And he needs to do that, and you need to have that aggressiveness and that tenacity that, we're not going to take this 9 down. But they've been three that I mentioned there have got to be, we can't accept him or expect to be winning if them three aren't 8, 9, or 10 every time they play for Galway.
On the younger players, do you think it's important to stick with them this on a week like this and play them again against Offaly?
Well, everyone has their own ideas, and for me, I'd have always done that. I remember even Tiernan, we'd played again. We took off Tiernan in a quarter final, and I remember the next day we met, and I said, "We're starting again the next day, no matter what." And I rang his father and said, "You go and tell him that he's playing the next day." And that was on the Monday before the Sunday, and he did, and he was excellent. He got the first scores straight away. But I believe in backing him because I don't believe one game doesn't define you, 2 games doesn't define you. Yes, you can dip out of form, but all these lads are well able to hurl. Like they're, you know what I mean? They're not even to go as senior panel for being mentally weak or physically weak or not have the ability to carry out to play at the top level. So I don't see anything wrong with it. Yeah, there will be tweaks. You can see if Dahi's going to come back. If he's fit, surely he starts. Connor, can we start him? Is David Burke back from his injury now? Do you know what I mean? Can they come into the fray? You're going to need experience down there. There's going to be a huge crowd from Offaly at this. You're going to need a different character, maybe a more experienced character, but still all them players are getting, I'm sure they'll know where to stand. They'll be clearly know what the role will be next Saturday or Sunday. I don't know what day it's on, whatever day it's on. They'll clearly know what they're expected of them within the group and within the team. And no, I don't no doubt, but they'll come good yet.
Yeah, that Saturday evening at 6:30 in Tullamore against Offaly. Even talk about some of the young lads who started. Well, they're not actually really young lads anymore when you consider it. But TJ Brennan obviously got a start in the half back line. John Fleming, as we mentioned, played midfield, and Tom Monaghan actually went to wing forward. Tiernan Killeen started at wing forward. Declan McLaughlin started, and it was just with the quality of ball and Declan McLaughlin on a player like Hugh Lawler, it was difficult for him as well, and particularly you take the conditions as well. But there is even more younger players. Well, they're not that young anymore, but like Joshua Ryan did well in that final league game against Cork. Rory Burke came on. John Cooney's on the bench. Do you think it's a possibility we could see more of those players that didn't start come in this weekend that I mentioned there?
Well, you don't know what's going on in the group internally. All I know is that I had Rory fullback for the colleges this year, and he was outstanding. He was absolutely brilliant. He was excellent. And John Cooney has never let me down in the 5 or 6 years that I worked with John, but I had him at 7 or 6, and he was outstanding in the college at six for us. Um, they were the two that we had in the dash. I know for the others that's in there, like, there's a lot of good talent in there, but it's a big step up. You've got to earn your stripes to play for your inter-county senior team, and you got to be doing something different, and you've got to be adding that bit of X factor. And Decky, to be fair, Decky McLaughlin will score. That was the one big difference with him at 20 and under 17 with us, was Decky could score. He would score every day. Decky would get his 2 or 3 points. He would score. And he was always out in front, and he was always causing trouble. And and a great guy to have around the group. So like I know Tiernan, Gavin, Woods, John. There's a good few of them in there that we had, and like, you know that they're quality. If they get the chance, but they need to get a run of games in, and that's very hard when you're in the situation that Galway's in, is to guarantee a run of games. So that's because at the end of the day, it is results based, and Galway do need to get results against Offaly. So do you stick with the youth, or do you go with the tried and tested before? It's a big one because I'd be all for the younger lads, but when you're going up to Tullamore as a manager, and David Burke and Conor Cooney, Dahi Burke coming in, the stability, the experience, the know-how, the game management at that level, because this is going to be, something that in the Leinster Championship with the crowd you probably won't get too often. It'll be more like a Munster game than a Leinster game because of the crowd. You're going to need to weigh up all the options, but they won't give up on the England, and nor should they give up on them either, because the talent, and they have proved in the past when younger lads, when they were younger lads, how they can mature, develop, and understand what's needed of them and deliver.
Going by that, would you stick with the young lads and add more younger lads into the 15 this weekend?
It's hard to know. It's very easy talking to us. You don't know what's going on in the group. You don't know how lads are playing and training. You don't know how the 20s lads are feeding in that Fergal's group into that. There's an awful lot of conundrums and stuff that you be only second guessing. You don't know where they are with lads. You don't, Joshua Ryan did well against Cork. I saw him playing full forward for the under 20s for Clarenbridge last year, and you couldn't mark him. Do you know what I mean? He was unmarkable. Rory, I had, as I said to you, coming in as wing forward, did well. It's got to be a balancing act. I think you can't just put them all in, and I don't think this next day will be the day for that either, considering where it is and who you're playing, and the vibe, and the way that county is trying to build and develop and mature, reflect back on what they've lacked for 10 or 12 years out of Leinster. So um, I'd say there'll be a balancing act done. I'd say some will be kept, and some won't.
There is a question here, Brian, that came in from a listener, David Gilligan, about the players. Can you pull out the All-Ireland minor winning teams and see where the players has gone? It's the thing when it comes to this. There is a significant amount of these players now from the minor and under 20 side currently in the seniors. It's probably just that we haven't seen players from those groups start for Galway over the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, but the group that I had that time that we won the two or three, there's very few of them making, on the team now or at that stage, and that's 5, 6 years ago now. Do you know what I mean? I think last year I went into Kilkenny dressing room in 2019 after they beat us, and they gave a big chat in the room. And I said my biggest concern is not about winning or losing your day; it was about how many of them lads will play consistently, and it wasn't just a once-off; it was consistently for Galway senior hurling. Of that team that we gave a good clip into that day, Kilkenny have 7 or 8 of them getting a lot of game time. And we have Tiernan and Gavin getting Decky now is getting a bit of game time. Um, and that's really it. I'm going through to my head here. The goalie isn't on the panel of our full backline. Owen Allis is on the panel of our half backline. John Cooney's on the panel. I think Ian is still on the panel. I'm not 100% sure on that Ian McGlynn. Um, None of our midfielders are on it. Tiernan's on it, and that's it. You know, there's none of the rest of them. Shawnee McDonough won that title for us. Ruben David was on it. Greg Thomas was outstanding, big prospect. I don't think he's on the panel now. And then you go on to other panels. Colin Malloy, I think, is just coming on in bits and pieces. And I mean, players fall away, like, but it's very hard to define it. Are you doing anything wrong? I don't know. Are you? I don't think you are. I think college and life in general takes a big twist for young lads at 17 or 18, and it goes from there. But you know what I mean? You'll get a bunch that'll come along again, and we need them. We need them to come good now. We need the current crop of 20s, and this is Fergus team that lost the minor final declare this team should deliver now for us, and we need that. And I think it's crying out for that. It's crying out for a win to boost it. They say, yeah, we are the best. And you can see what's happened in Cork. They didn't win the minors, but they backed it up with the 20s. And you can see like that team that did beat us in the minors, like they're getting their players from that. And Matt Ryan has been brought along with them to 20s, and now he's going to seniors them, and he knows them. And you can see even Liam Cahill down Tipperary, he had success with them, and he's bringing the lads he knows, and he's understood them for a long period of time, and they're coming now. And I think that'll happen. Though I think Mihal, no doubt, Mihal and Franny know them, and they'll get them.
Are you surprised that Shane Morgan wasn't in the 26th the weekend?
He did okay against Cork. I see again. You don't know. You like Shane. I don't know. He could have been injured. I don't know anything about him. Like he's definitely well fit to be in there. He was outstanding for that Ray. Um, at 6, he's in. We had to use a full forward, and he was brilliant there for us. And then when we were in trouble, we put him back center back. So he's an outstanding talent. I've no doubt he'll make it yet. I never have. But I don't know why he wasn't on the 26. I don't know. There could be other reasons, or there could be anything. But I'm sure he's going to get his chance.
Overall, when we're just looking back on this Kilkenny game, as we mentioned, difficult day for Galway. They'll be looking for a reaction. Do you just park this now? Like, do you think Galway would have addressed it Saturday night? That's it, and move forward, because I suppose with the way the round robin is in either province, you can't think about this for too long.
No, well, you can't, and you can't do anything about it now. It's done. Like you can't. The only thing that you'd, as a group, as a leader, as managers, is you'd be just making sure that they have the belief and the confidence to bounce back. That it's not just words, or it's not just, for the sake of saying it. Like you're looking for a reaction. You'll know Saturday night now. Like if the reaction isn't there against Offaly, then you're in big trouble. Like, you know what I mean? If you're a player, you'd like to go back to when you played yourself or tried to play, more importantly, and you'd be saying the day to go wrong is you couldn't wait to fix it. And I presume all these lads, and that's why I think the more experienced guys now this week, the lads in name, they've got to get hold of that group, and they've got to drive it on and say, this, we can't do anything about it now, it's done. But this just does not ever happen us again as a group. And you batten down the hatches, you keep away from everyone else, and you just do your talking in the field next Saturday evening, which I firmly believe they will do. I've full faith in that management team they have. They couldn't have any better. I think they have the best group of lads available to them, and they have a good mixture of senior. There's a lot of good, if they were professionals, there's a lot of good senior pros, and there was a lot of good lads that have been around the block. A lot of lads that understand that these things happen, and you don't dwell on them, you move on. But we do need a performance the next day from whomever gives it to us, whether they play the Islands the next day, wherever, you know what I mean. Whether they freshen it up that way or not, but I'm sure only them know the intricacies of their group and what's that. But I would expect that there will be a wounded animal mentality next Saturday evening. I'd be very, very surprised if we don't get a very, very good result Saturday evening.
Do Galway feed into that this week, or is it just very much they know themselves that last weekend wasn't good enough?
Sorry, say I will call come in there. Sorry, what did you say? Can you
No
repeat that now?
bother.
Sorry.
I was just saying, do Galway feed into this? Can they use it as a siege mentality of the outside noise, or is it very much they just know it wasn't good enough themselves?
Oh yeah, but they just don't listen to Anthem. They know themselves. They don't need to be. They don't need to read here. They just know themselves. You know, in a group, that group, I presume, will be very tight. I think there'll be leaders in that group that have their core leaders within the players and the management, and they'll sit down and reflect on it. And I think they won't do too much reflection on it, because there's nothing they can do about it. Only perform better, fix the work rate in the middle third, get that right. We can start getting more hoop block tackles and turnovers, getting good ball delivered in, and then we can finish inside, and we can get that system going. And all of a sudden next Sunday evening, Our Saturday evening, you have a different complexion, a different result, and the whole thing has changed. Look what they did in the league. Everyone was saying they're going to be relegated after Tipperary game. Do you know?
One game of
Like, so, you know, they could have been in the league final quite easily. So, no, I'd just open day jitters before.
It's the thing, isn't it? Like we can use that as a reference point. Tipperary game, a lot of people had concerns, but they came back in the second round, went down to Northern Park and got a win against Kilkenny, and then got three wins in a row. So there's character here. There's huge experience in the management team between Micheál, Noel, and Franny, and Aidan, and Eamon O'Shea as well.
Ah, yeah, but you'd expect a reaction, like, from everyone. Them, like, you know what I mean? That's the bottom line. That wasn't good enough. So when you get that label at you, you're hurting. Do you know what I mean? I would presume they wish to Saturday even now, this very minute, and ready to go again. Do you know what I mean? That's what you would presume comes from any group, and any group that would be from a sporting context that would be hurting like that, and you'd be just raring to go again and sort the wrongs. And if you're picked to play, or if you're not picked to play, if you're picked to come in, that you know what your role is and you're going to give the utmost you can to that. And that includes management. You look at yourself more so than anything else, and you're going to be analysing everything you did and your preparation and everything. But um, I think there's too much character, there's too much quality in that group, and there's too much leadership, and there's, you know, the management are too solid. They're too long around to let one game let that be a defining moment of the year. I've no doubt we'll get a reaction Saturday evening, genuinely, and I think I know the players. I know I've worked with an awful lot of them, and I know the quality is there, and I think we'll see that Saturday evening.
Just a question that's come in from William Francis, listener. He said, "How have we fallen so far off the pace in the last few years?" Do you do you agree with a comment like that?
Well, we came within the puck for ball when the Leinster final last year, and if they'd won that, or not last year, the year before, I think
Yeah.
that was a huge day. I think that was a huge result. I think that rocked Galway hurling a lot more than we realised at the time, because we needed to win that. We needed to win a Leinster championship. We just needed to win something, and winning. When you start winning, it becomes easier mentally and everything. And we lost that. And I think I read somewhere after you rang me today about this, was we've lost the last five championship games to Kilkenny. So we need to stop that. But we can't stop that now until, albeit hopefully get to the Leinster final this year and put a stop to it there. And then it's a different thing again. We haven't fallen. We're in transition, certainly. Certainly we're in transition. Um, and I think we have had excellent performances. Limerick back in the day, you know, we were very, very good against Kilkenny. Last year we just a write-off. We have to make sure now that this year doesn't become the same thing. If that becomes the same thing, then we are slipping, because we've lost 2 years. Effectively, we lost a year of hurling last year by not competing in the Leinster final, not competing in the round robin series. Um, and that has to stop. We have to, but how far are you off it? Cork were gone for a good few years and they came back clear. We're gone for years. It just takes a bit of momentum, a bit of building, and then a bit of consistency of the players. And I think that's what we're striving for at the minute. And when it does come together, hopefully it will be this year we get to a Leinster final, then you at least get in the round robin. And that's crucial that happens this year. That's a must. Whatever we're winning it, it's a must that we get in the backdoor series at least. And you know, we're there long term in the season. Because Galway hurling has too much to offer the whole All Ireland series, you know, not to be in it. It's a, you know, we're too good for that. And I think it will come right for us. I think Saturday could be huge for us. A good performance and a good win. All of a sudden, you've got Wexford and Dublin, you've got Antrim. You know, you're in the driving seat again.
As we mentioned, this is season defining. I don't think Galway have ever had a clash this early that is it's huge for them. Like if it doesn't go right this weekend, it's an uphill task to get out of Leinster. Like this is a massive clash against Offaly. Like we've never probably had a clash this big as early on in our Leinster Championship campaign before.
Well, it's the biggest game I have because it's the next game I have. That's the
Yeah.
way it is. And if it was Wexford, you be saying the same thing, or Dublin, or whoever it be. It's the same thing, and the result goes your way. You're in, obviously everyone's in better spirits, and all the negative talk starts going all the way. If you lose it, you got three more games, you get 6 points, and the narrative still stays there that you've got to get in the top three, um, and it's still
Well, the only
very
thing is our goal difference is not great now after last day.
no, but you still have to look at getting wins. You know, it's about winning. It's about getting the wins. And like Leinster hurling has probably leveled out between all the teams. Wexford probably improved a little bit. Dublin are definitely Meath improved Dublin no end, to be fair, and they've been driven on and improving. They're staying at a level. Um, Antrim, it's very hard to see Antrim winning any games unless they can win one up at home. But you'd have to be. Then this game is the biggest game because it's the next game, and the next game after that becomes the biggest game. Then, but you're looking for a performance. You're just looking. I suppose from having worked with them and unknown so many of them, you're just looking for them to give a true reflection of how good they are. And I think that's the bit that hurts you. Like I was under no illusions ever when we're coaching that you're only a small stepping stone helping them to progress to where they're going to get to. And you know how good they are, you know the individuals are, you know the sacrifices they're making, both management and players. You understand what they're going through. You know, you just hope that they give that performance next Saturday evening and get that good feeling back into themselves again and then use that as a springboard for them. So I don't think we're slipping that far, but I do believe we are in transition everywhere across the senior top table. We are in transition there and it will work, but I think small steps, and I think this year to get the Leinster final is got to be the first goal.
Interesting, we're talking about this being a big game. Then you throw in the Galway men involved with Offaly this weekend. Johnny Kelly from Portumna manager, Colin Callanan involved in the backroom team, Brian Roach, S&C coach. There's that's sorry, and I'm very sure Dave O'D is involved as well in the strength and conditioning side with Offaly as well. So I think four Galway men overall involved in this Offaly backroom team.
Ah, yeah, but I've been no concern to anyone in Galway. Like fair play to them, doing a great job in Offaly, and like I was with Westmeath for what 4 years, and you go up and you'll be learning, you use them, but hopefully they'll get the opportunity to come back and use what they've learned up in Offaly and make Galway better in future.
If we're to look, Brian, at what the starting 15 could be for Galway Offaly this weekend, we're probably along the lines that Derek's going to be in goals again.
I would imagine. I don't. I presume that it's a stick or twist scenario for the management. But again, when you don't know the group and you don't know what's going on and how they've trained and how they're playing and how they'll react, you'll know their body language is key now this week. How they'll react to that. You know what I mean? I'm sure they'll be hurting. You know what I mean? They'll want to put it right. You as a player, you want to put it right. As a manager, you're just damn glad that you're getting the chance to perform next week, and then you're putting all this pressure on yourself to make sure that you've every box ticked or everything done, and you're all probably even overthinking it at times. Um, I don't think there'll be much changes. They may have to look at Conor Cooney. I don't know who David Burke is. Do they go back with the experienced player because this is going to be such a big crowd from Offaly there? That's the only thing. Experience. You know what I mean? You're doing a job interview in the morning. What experience you have? The experience will always win out on the big pressure moments, and you can add to that then as the game goes on. I wouldn't be surprised to see a few of the bigger names. Dahi has to start if he's able. Maybe David Burke, maybe Connor. Do you know what I mean? You put him on Ireland again. You know, they've got these are the conundrums. Even though Cahill did brilliantly on the freeze. You know what I mean? So these are what they'll be weighing up this week, and they'll see the body language of the players coming in and all the stuff we do this week, and then you know what I mean. They'll go from there. Like they'll make the right decision, no doubt.
If you're picking the team in the morning yourself, who are you picking as your six backs?
Oh, it's very hard when you're not working the group. It's very hard. From the last two, do you need to change anything? I don't think so. Like you know what I mean. Um, your full back line was fine. If Dahi comes in, yes, you can change that. Then you look at Finton going to wing back, and do they look at putting Dahi in at six and moving Gavin? I don't know what the long term process will be. You know, I'd have a massive admiration with Gavin, so I hope he stays six. Um, I hope Dahi comes back into it, and maybe Finton goes to 5 or 7. But that's not a reflection on anyone to play 5 or 7. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think your two cornerbacks are so that they'll. These are all things to figure out. We don't know. Is Dahi 70 minutes in his legs at the moment? I don't know what injury he had. I'm not aware of that. So again, it's very hard to know, and it's not fair to very hard to single one person out in a big defeat because there's a lot of things that goes wrong in one big defeat. It's not just any one individual or one person or one moment or one play. It's a lot of different things that went wrong. It could be the last training session. You go through all these stuff as a management team. You'll analyze everything. From the bus journey down to something. You just don't know. You just don't know. But I'd be sticking with as much as I possibly could. But I would be an advocate of this game in particular because of the crowd I witnessed at the time Offaly beat us in the 20s. It was different. Like it was different. The only time we had that was with the minors in Croke Park when you had a crowd. And that, and when they get, if Offaly get a run in the end, that crowd behind you and home support, you see in the Munster Championship with Clare yesterday, once the Clare crowd got behind Clare, there was only, like, they didn't never look like losers even when they were behind. So it's a big, big decision for Hall and for his management team. And I know they'll make the right one based on what they see in training.
What would you do in midfield then? Because obviously there probably hasn't really been a consistent midfield partner in Galway over the last few years. But I do agree with you. Maybe this just is a game where you bring in a player like David Burke with his experience.
It could be, yeah, but I like Tom on in the middle of the field. I had the pleasure of working with Tom for a year with Crowell, and he got us to semi-final in the county, and he was an excellent attitude and excellent worker, a very, very tireless worker for the team. Doesn't always come up with that. Doesn't always be perceived as being seen with that. But I saw him firsthand. I like him in the middle of the field. I just like the way I like the way he contributes to the game. And whoever they put him, there's no reflection of the two that were there, no reflection of John or Keenan or anyone like her. Is it a day for David? Is David Burke? You know, unless you're in the inner sanctum of the group, you won't know that. But I would still, like, if John Fleming went to wing forward and Tom Anna went to midfield, I'd see nothing wrong with that based on the performance of last day. Consistency and understanding of how to play in that role of 8 or 9. Tom carries a massive attacking threat. He also very good defensively. Well, not to say Ronan Glennon has been his strongest attribute for me is he's actually very defensive minded. So you know what I mean? Them two worked well together. Keenan has been very good. So you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know what way the group is being set up or what they'll plan to do. Obviously no one does, but they'll come up with the right decisions. But they're points of debate, and that's all they are.
It's an interesting point you made at the start of the podcast that we've maybe been guilty in the past of giving one player a chance and then maybe he mightn't start the next day. Connor Cooney could potentially come to the half forward line because, as you mentioned, it's been a struggle of us probably retaining our own ball. But do you think it's important to give Declan a start again?
Oh, I have tinted glasses when you come to them lads, the Declan and the
Yeah,
Tiernan and all them lads. I like they were so good to me in my group, our group, not my group, our group. I would start Decky. He scores, like he just scores. Like no, but
yeah.
Anthony Burns in I never worked with Anthony. I think I saw him playing a club game a few years ago for Loughrea, and I think he was actually taken off of him. The strides that he has made since have been unbelievable. He's just he's made massive strides. So maybe, and he's done very well in the league. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I would always start Decky, to be honest. I just think he deserves a start again. He did nothing really wrong the last time. The limited ball he got, he was competitive, he scored. Um, I think he will start. I think they will. And do you know what I mean? He needs a game time. He needs that big experience, and he probably needs the pressure now of being able to having to deliver. But again, you're only as good in that corner forwards and all spot to play because you're totally dependent on someone else getting right ball into you.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see that makeup of the guys starting 15. Kevin Cooney, Brian, he wasn't a player included. He wasn't even on the standby list. Is he? I know he struggled with injury in your Fitz campaign. Is he still struggling with injury?
Oh, no, I had him in the first game, and he was
Yeah,
unplayable. He was absolutely unplayable, and then he had to go off at half time and then he played the other 2 games. And to be fair, he didn't hit the heights in the other 2 games he played compared to the first one against Mary. He was unbelievable. I've seen a lot of Sarsi's games. I know them. The most club I know now, young lads over there, but he's an outstanding talent. Like he's I like we played in UIG there in the game this year, and like there was no one that you couldn't handle him. Like he's turning a pace, he's shooting. I've never seen such a shot to be hit so quickly and so accurately in the one movement. And we played him kind of as a quarterback where we just let him run around the place in the forwards and just feed the ball to him. That was what we were doing, and it worked. I don't know what the story is. I honestly don't know. I didn't hear anything. I wasn't talking to anyone about him, but like I would have expected him to be carrying the fight genuinely. In that forward line. But he's not on the 26. I don't know what the story is. I don't know is he injured? I honestly don't know. But I do know what a savage player he is and what quality he has because
yeah,
I've seen him firsthand, particularly. albeit he was half injured and he's doing it this year, but I did see it like, and I've seen it with Sarcy's. No, he's scoring rate, with Sarcy hasn't been probably the level it should be to carry that team at senior level, but he's an outstanding talent, and he before the injury, which he got a very bad injury, and you don't know much as an injury will hurt you physically, you don't know psychologically what that does to you either, and that may be my only concern there.
Yeah, I think we'd all love to see him back. It's just that
Mm.
injury probably came at the wrong time for him as well because he was hurling so well for Galway as well at the time. Um, really kind of had a breakout year when it comes to intercounty hurling. As you mentioned, Offaly, like it's going to be a big challenge. Like they were inches away from getting a result against Dublin. Like so, the buzz is still there with Offaly, even though they lost their first game in Leinster as well.
Yeah, it is, and rightly so. Like they've made it's great for the GA, it's great for Leinster hurling, it's great for Galway hurling that they're competitive now. You need more of that. You need like gone is the game that you just think off and you're going to give them a good clip, and like that's finished now, and it's a big game for everyone involved, and there's going to be a massive crowd. It's going to be a great occasion. It's going to be a great occasion to play in, but it'll only be any good if you win it. You know what I mean, from a Galway point of view, because you don't want to be coming away from there beaten because you can imagine what's going to come down the track. I will not be answering you for a podcast next week if they get beaten this week. You know what I mean? Because you're going to find it very hard to stay positive. And, you have such loyalty when you work to do that, and you have such respect for what management do when you try to do it yourself. That you know what I mean? You understand what they go through and you understand where they are at with everything and the levels of work and the endeavors they're doing to make it right. And, you know, deep down, you want Galway to have a good performance Saturday evening and to put all that to bed and start nearly with a clean slate again because they did well in the league. And let's not forget that. Clare were relegated in the league and look what they did. So you'll be just, hoping that everyone that may have an injury or two that they're right for Saturday and Nihal is the strongest group he can pick from available to him and we can get that performance right.
Look at Offaly's quality in attack. Like Brian Duignan has really hit levels this year. He was immense again at the weekend for Offaly, 8 points. Dan Ravenhill's been solid for them from the place ball. Charlie Mitchell, Oisin Kelly, Dan Burke, Killian Sampson in attack. Like there's real quality there now with this Offaly team.
And they have it up front. They're scorers, you know what I mean? They're all contributing. That was the one thing about Offaly and the 20 success and they had an awful lot of different scorers in every game. And they were all capable of scoring. And that's a huge thing to have in a team. Like you look at the last day, your biggest criticism, God, we didn't score enough. But you look at the wide range of scorers Kilkenny had. And there was even a question asked to John Kiley yesterday before the game. And I didn't pick up and looked at it differently. When Limerick beat Tipperary last year, they had so many different scorers. And every one of them nearly scored again yesterday. And you need a broad range of scorers. And that's probably what is Galway's Achilles heel at the minute. We don't have a spread of scores all over the place, like everyone chipping in with 1 or 2 or 3 points. You know what I mean? And Offaly do have that. They have, and anyone can turn up and do that for them. They can get a group of 2 or 3 doing that every day or every second or third day. That, you know what I mean? It's a massive advantage to a team that you're not just relying on one person to do it. Like, have we been over reliant on Conor Whelan to come good? Are we over reliant on what happens if Cathal Mannion gets injured again or has a bad day or is man marked or do you know what I mean? Is double teamed, there's 2 of them on him and we don't have his scoring threat. So who's going to step up? And that's where you're really looking for, like.
Yeah, and you're even seeing with Offaly now the likes of Owen Cal, Killian Kiley, like these are experienced players and they're coming in now to this Offaly team, so they're strengthening depth there. And we haven't even seen Adam Screeney, he obviously played in that 20s game. You quite easily see him this weekend too.
Oh, I'd say you will, yeah, I've no doubt you will. But Offaly will be targeting this. Let's not make any mistake about that. They will be targeting this. They'll see this as an opportunity to put Offaly really back on the map. Like, and there's it's like one of those games years ago that you'll be playing yourself and the opposition you're playing they're not seen to be at your level. If you hammer them, do well against them, you're supposed to do that. If you get over, oh, you're not going great. If you get beaten them, it's a disaster. So Galway just have to win this game the next year, regardless, and let's move on. And use that
And,
as a
and Brian,
stepping
it
stone.
doesn't matter how we win this either.
No, none of it. Doesn't matter. There's only 1 point to go in the last second to win it. Doesn't matter. As long as you win it, there's the the tabloids would be so much different would you win and lose, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
and even the outlook is going to be so much different. So and the group needs a boost now. You can nearly tell that they need a group. when you said that stat there, I'd heard it, but I wasn't going to mention about the last two defeats they've had and the mannerisms and the numbers and all that. Their groups aren't silly anymore. They understand and they know that, and they, you know that yourself. You just need to get a performance now and get a win and move on and build, step back and build and build and build and build and build belief in the group. Most of these lads, they shouldn't be. They've had a few bad defeats now, but they just need to be picked up and told how good they are and how good they can be and how good they will be. And that's where I see the work being done this week, is just to reassure them of where they can get to and that they will get there. It'll just take time, starting next Saturday evening.
And as you mentioned, a win can be a completely different outlook, but a win to set us up here for home games to come against Wexford and Antrim as well. Obviously, we've had our two first games away, but two home games to come, a win, a break, it puts things back on track.
And it does, of course. It's all perception. Everything you do with a team is perception. You know what I mean? It's true. Like the perception of Galway hurling this week is it's not great. And you turn around and you beat Offaly Saturday, still week geez, it's great. You're going to play Wexford. You have a great chance of beating them, and then you've got Antrim, you beat them, and you're in the Leinster final. Do you know what I mean? So it's just it's because of the result and the mannerism of the result against Kilkenny, it's probably heightened the expectation and the need and the want for Galway to have a performance and win. Personally, I don't care as long as you just win it. And the more young lads I see playing, the prouder and happier I will be. But I think this could be a day for your more experienced player to lead the line start, try and take the heat out of the game and set it up for the younger guys to finish this out and show their true quality under pressure.
Just one thing before we finish, Brian, because I think it's important when this is a Galway platform to mention this to listeners, but it's very easy to support the Galway senior hurlers when they're going well because their days out and it's something everyone looks forward to. But I think personally that we should be urging as many Galway supporters as possible to get out and support this team up the weekend because Offaly have a support. It's going to be uncomfortable on Saturday evening at stages for Galway, and I think it's vital that as many genuine supporters as possible get up and support this team because there's no point in saying otherwise. They're at a low point at the minute, and a big Galway support here could be massive at the weekend.
Well, it's not could be, it will be massive. But well, we witnessed it the day off we beat it in the 20s. It was unbelievable. Like the noise from we hadn't witnessed that other than I told you I alluded to that already. And this is going to be partisan crowd. You know what I mean? They're going to fill the place. And you're going to need as much as you can. But when the game starts, all that does go genuinely.
Yeah.
You do as a player that won't impact you. Now you do get momentum from a crowd and things are going well. You feed off that, and you do feed off it when your momentum goes against you. But ultimately, once you go across the white lines, you got to have yourself right as a player and as a manager, you management team. You got to make the calls right. You got to be clear. You got to have all the answers to whatever's thrown at you, and it will be thrown at you. I think the start is key. Galway gets a good starter, an even keel of a start. Don't let Offaly build up ahead of steam. You know what I mean? The two starting points, the first half and the second half. You just can't let a team get any momentum. You saw it yesterday with Tipperary. You saw it yesterday with Limerick. You saw it with Clare in particular. Like once a team gets ahead of steam up against you, it's very hard to turn around, and particularly away from home. And you know, they do need all the support they can get, but ultimately it's going to come down to the bunch this week in their preparation mentally, more so than physically for Saturday evening. And that game will be won and lost in my head Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday in preparation themselves, how they focus, how they mentally analyse what's going to happen and go and deliver.
You think they'll get the job done on Saturday evening, just about?
Yeah, I've no doubt. I've no doubt that group. I think there's too many good hurlers there. If we couldn't have a better management team around them, I've no doubt. If they get their heads into a zone, like they're not bad players. They'd walk into a lot of teams. The quality of the youth that's there to support what's already there is from an adult, from a more senior player. You do need the likes of the Manions and Brian Concannon and Conor Whelan to step up. You do need them to be big players. You need them to come and grab this and completely dominate. There's no player for Offaly that has achieved or played to the level that they've played. Throw David Burke into it, even Tom Monaghan into it now at this stage. You know what I mean? They haven't Dahi Burke, they haven't got that caliber of hurling behind them, that experience of defeat and the knowledge of victory. You know what I mean? So, and then you back that up with a good core group of young lads that have proved themselves, as a lot of Offaly have younger lads have done now as well, but that have proved themselves to be as good as what they are. And you know what I mean? They've delivered on bigger days and big questions asked them between schools, hurling, um, county underage and college hurling. They've delivered and continually deliver. And I think, I know what direction I'd rather be going into anyway.
Just finally, Brian, as well, the minors got their campaign off to a winning start as well at the weekend.
Yeah,
217
it's
to
good. Yeah, it's good.
113 winners over Dublin.
Yeah, that's good. It's good to see that, and Kindle do a fine job there, and that's again feeding into the whole ethos of the pathway to the pathway to play senior hurling for Galway and how many you get out of a group. You can see that Jeffrey's group and my group we're struggling to get players yet, and they're 24, 25. And we're getting some, and it will come, and more will come. And it's just the fusion now of getting that younger core group together with the older player and getting the fusion of that correct and get it to bond and get it to gel before too many of the older lads go on and they experience the younger they'll get in and then they become the leaders. And that's why the Dahi and the Manions and Connor, I've said it already, Brian, they've got to lead the line now. They've got to take this, they've got to be all over this now for Saturday. They've really got to, even David, if he's playing or not playing, he's really got to come and just lead that group because they'll all trust him. They'll all believe in him. They'll all be looking up to him. He mightn't believe that, but they will. Like you'll be looking up to him yourself when he talk to you. You know what I mean? So, and they'll be looking for that leadership and that drive and that, I suppose, that confidence in knowing that someone who's already done it can say, no, this is okay. We'll be fine. We just need to do the basics right, and it will happen.
As well there, Féile took place over the weekend. Micheál Brannachs, they won the C 110 to 1-8 over Ceylon. Father Joe Walsh's Betlock Ray 1-8 to 9. And then in the Féile A final, Michael Cusacks are the champions, winning 12 points to 5 against Turlock Moor. Like for Michael Cusacks to win an A, and I know they're a club joined up together, but it's terrific to see, isn't it?
No, it's great to see, and it's great to see. I was at a few of the Féile games. I'm more to the B side of it, the A1 side of it, whatever one's called. I saw Carmore playing. Kinvara was a great game. Carmore were very unlucky. Kinvara then got beaten. I think Crowell were expected to win the A from all the talk and what I'd heard, and then Ardmore caught them, and then Turlockmore came around and beat them, and then Cusacks come along and winners. It's great. It's good. There's but there's two amalgamation clubs winning the first two competitions that I saw. Is it Father Joe's they're called, isn't it?
Yeah, Father Joe Walsh's,
Yeah,
yeah.
I saw it, Father Joe. I saw them playing a couple of weeks ago. They had some fine hurlers. I think they got a goal in the last minute to beat Loughrea, but it just shows you Loughrea are consistent. They're competing at the top table, everything they do, and it's a credit to them. You know what I mean? They're fighting up there with that, and it's good. Look, which is a great weekend. Hurling's winner, but even going around yesterday at the Féile games I was at, and I was in a Haskell for them, and you do need your Galway senior hurling team to be in a better place because that drives on hurling, and ultimately that's all we want to see happening. And next Saturday could be a huge catalyst to improve and develop all the hurling again underage because really and truly that's your flagship group and that's your flagship team and they're your heroes for all these young lads, every one of them. And I just hope and I expect Saturday evening to be a big moment for them lads.
Yeah, it's going to be huge, and it's a huge week for Go Ireland. We're wishing the management and players the very best of luck this week, and hopefully we can get a positive result against Offaly coming up. Brian Hanley, thanks a million for your time.
No problem. Thank you. See you, bud.